What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the North Leeds Jitz podcast. This time on the show, we've got Professor Mike and the General, Ziggy the Dog.
The Zigmeister General. Or you can call him Ziggy if you want.
Yeah. I like this little rolling animal kind of thing we've got going for the podcast.
It's going to be like a Blue Peter sketch, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
The elephant shits on the floor or whatever. We just need him to calm down and he'll be good. But no, it's good to be here, mate.
Well, he's excited to be on the world famous North Leeds Jitz podcast, I think that's why, you know. So.
He is. It's his debut.
So we've got a couple of things to talk about, but general, just a bit of a catch-up kind of episode. Since last time you were on, Professor, we had Joe Russell on. That was real fun.
Joe's been... He's a nice guy, Joe, isn't he?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of good feedback because Joe just make connections and make friends with everyone like really quickly. So it's nice to have him on. And it'll be good because Joe's going to do some lead coaching for us. So again, for like those parents who might be wondering like, oh, who is like the guy leading the class? They can look back at all those episodes, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then probably the biggest thing that happened was the Victor and Braulio and Marcos.
The Estima Seminar.
The Estima Seminar, yeah. How'd you find that?
How'd I find it? I found it really quite special, actually. I mean, I don't want to sound like a bit of a broken record, but because I say that after most seminars, but I thought this one actually was just probably the best one we've had. And it was special not only because I thought what they taught was really good and the way they taught was really good, and the way, you know, they were able to articulate the why around those techniques, which is what we try to do, what I try to do certainly in our classes. But more than anything, I think it was special that hopefully our students got to see our connection to my professor and his brother and that extended connection between them and the Estima brothers and Gracie Bahar worldwide. I think we can often forget that we're part of a huge global team of superstars like those two guys, and to be able to bring them in and get people to meet them and for people to almost just see that they're normal guys. It was really powerful. I enjoyed it.
I think some of the feedback that I heard a lot was that a lot of people enjoyed it more than the Hodger seminar. It's like Hodger was great and it's a great name to have, but like the actual bit in the seminar was because they're brothers, like they had great like banter together and like the actual energy, and Braulio just is full of charisma anyway, and Victor's like his ability to just hold a room to like just focus on every like word he says is incredible, really. So I think, you know, it was really well enjoyed by everyone. It's kind of tough when people ask you like, oh, someone who missed the seminar, like, how was it? They're like, oh, it was great, but it's like you can't really sum it up in like a few words, can you?
No, I think you miss out if you don't come. Like that's just the way it is. Every seminar is special in its own way. I always have said that for me anyway, I remember the most things from seminars. So traveled all over the world training, but the kind of big seminars, the set pieces, you always remember what you were taught. You always remember that occasion because it's kind of like condensed into one night and you've got your focus, you paid money for it. The other thing, mate, was like, we chatted about this afterwards, just being really proud that we're able to bring in that level of experience for our students, right? But that can only happen with the strength of our academy. With the scale that we're at, not just financially, because, and I don't mind sharing this with people, like we made a lot more money when it was just me and you and 250 members, a lot more. We've had to put a lot more money into our infrastructure and our team. But with that, it gives us the scale to be able to bring in big marquee names. And I think that's the commitment that we're going to make going forward, is that we're going to try and keep that level. Rather than, you know, bringing in, you know, no disrespect, but like 35, 40 pound seminars of people that you can go and see anywhere. Mm-hmm. These are people that you're not going to get the chance to spend time with that often. You've got a short list, I've got a short list of people that we'd like to bring in.
Yeah, I think not really a seminar, but one that will get announced soon. And I believe we're having a mobility workshop from a guy with a black belt who works with Liam and Farouk over their injuries quite a bit. And it was the guy that Liam saw when he was out in, was it the Canary Islands?
Cape Verde was that, yeah.
Cape Verde, yeah. So he's going to do some kind of a mobility session for some people, just soon at the end of April, I believe.
Oh, that's cool. See, I didn't even know about that. So I'm glad I came on today.
So just working on finalising some of that stuff. And then, for like seminars, maybe looking at maybe one more this year, and we're in the process of looking at getting booked, and then we'll just kind of see who becomes available when. It's sometimes not so easy just to get even a hold of some people, and let alone then entice them to come up to the north of England.
Or flying from the States. It's
Yeah.
a big deal. But I think that's kind of where we need to go with it. And I'd much rather, and I'm sure, but I would hope people would agree that it would be more beneficial and more special for us to have 2 or 3 really, really big, exclusive, marquee seminars a year than half a dozen lower level ones.
Yeah, I think seminars aren't cheap either. Whether you do it for a £40 one or like Freaked and Braulio, more at the expensive side of that £75, right? So that's a lot of money to a lot of people. So you can't just put those on every 3 months or even once a quarter, because on top of your membership fees, you can get a lot of fatigue. And really, when we do a seminar, we want to pack out the whole room like it was on Thursday and like it was for Hodger. Like there's, it gets a bit tight for training, but the energy in the room is completely different when you've got the difference between having 70 people on the mat or 40 on the people on the mat. Like it's completely like such a big energy boost.
I think, to be honest, this time round, because Braulio quite graciously gave everyone a 45% discount, kind of paid for itself. If you get GP online and you get the 45%, basically half price discount for the year. I was chatting to Ross Basin yesterday, because he just bought it. And he was saying, man, this is transformational for my learning. I can see all the curriculums before I even come to class, or I can review them afterwards. It's great. So if you didn't catch that, there is a code. I think you went in the groups.
Yep. It's
for a 45% discount on GB Online. And if you just get it for 1 year, I think it'll really help.
100%. Someone was asking people about how they found the seminar, and what I thought was funny, someone was saying to me, I can't really remember what Braulio taught, but I remember all the Victor stuff. I'm like, that's every time I've been to a Braulio seminar. It's like, it's so conceptual, like it's hard to be like, a lot of times at the start, people just need like step 1, step 2, step 3, but then when he's talking about...
But for me,
yeah, exactly.
At my level, that was like exactly what I
but I was just laughing because I'm like, that's pretty much
the interesting
seminar.
thing about it, we were sat in the corner with Gaz. For those who don't know, Gaz, who came from Neepsend in Sheffield, he was Victor's first black belt. And used to coach down at Nottingham with him. So it was great to see Gazzy as well. And Braulio was in the corner with me and Gaz as Victor was teaching, and he was like, can I just try this? He'd seen something that Victor showed and thought, what if I just did this? Would it change my armbar or Plata game? I just thought it was wonderful to see someone who has achieved, amazing things in the sport, still learning on a night when he's there to help others learn. So I thought that was really special and a great role model really for anybody who wants to get good at anything. It's just a lifelong pursuit of learning. I actually think it is expensive. I get it, and it's not for everybody. And it would be great if we, could in some way allow this to happen cost-free, but it's not. You can't do that. These people charge, quite rightly, a high fee. But I do think it's great value.
Oh, yeah.
For a 2.5, 3 hour seminar to learn from some of the world's best who've ever done jiu-jitsu. Like, this is like, if you're a football fan, this is like, I don't know, Neymar teaching you how to kick a ball. Like, it's the very, very top level. £30 an hour, £40 an hour. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not bad value.
It's always interesting the way people value different things. I was saying to someone was speaking about the price of membership at David Lloyd's the other day, and I was like, it depends on what you're going to get out of it, because all of us will happily go out for dinner and spend £60-70 or something like that on that one got 2 hours of just like a bit of indulgence that then you don't really take anything away from afterwards, apart from the time and company and the experience and that kind of thing. But then if you say, oh, it's £150 gym membership, it's like, what? Like that is insane, right? But that's like, you could go every day for the month and it's going to have like a lasting impact on your health. Like,
that is a good point.
So it's always interesting to see how people value things like that. I don't think there's anything other updates-wise we need to talk about, but I did have, Alan asked me a good question the other day.
Alan Wills?
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe we should bring that up on the podcast. He was saying how he's doing well against his peers, and he's not sure exactly how he should try and measure his own progress, to know if what's his baseline, to know if he's getting better. And I was thinking that was a nice little topic to bring up.
Great question. Yeah, Alan's someone who's really been coming quite a lot, actually. I mean, that's why he's improving, because he's coming twice a day sometimes and training most days. I spoke about it yesterday in class. If you were at the class on Monday, lunchtime and evening, I spoke about the importance of, week one of the curriculum, really setting some goals for the short term and probably the medium term, but certainly over the next 4 months, the next cycle of the curriculum. It's a really good block of time to use the back of your attendance card to write some goals down. Because if you don't write them down, you're kind of not accountable to them and you don't know if you've achieved them. And so a few examples might be to kind of measure your progress and to answer your question. If Alan's, what does he mean by doing okay against his peers? Is he submitting them? Is he submitting someone at the same stripe level or belt level every role? Is he doing that from a multiple different positions, top and bottom? And when you start to dig into it a little bit like that, you start to say, well, okay, maybe I don't get tapped myself, and I maybe get one submission every 5 rounds. Maybe it's always from top position. It's like, okay, well, what if you got a submission every round? That would be progress. What if those submissions came from your guard? That would be progress. So you've got to start to think and really have a period of introspection and self-reflection on your jiu-jitsu and think a bit more carefully about it. About, okay, where am I right now? What can I do? What am I good at? What do I keep doing? Rob Salverson came back on the mat yesterday. Everyone knows Rob's a great guy. He's been off for a month. And Rob's thing is straight footlocks, right? Like that's what he does. And it's great. He's got a little game going and it's really, it's his special thing really. And I watched him last night, kind of out the corner of my eye. I didn't get a chance to roll with him, unfortunately, but he was tapping most people with his footlock. So using that as an example, well, he's someone who set a goal to get better at this one technique, and now he's doing it, and he's submitting most of his peers in most rounds with the straight footlock. So Rob needs to adjust his goals now. It's like, okay, I can do that. Well, what about top position? What about guard passing? So I think it's to sum this up, it's really important that no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're a black belt, whether you're brand new, Ziggy, stay there. For those who aren't watching and listening, there's a dog on the couch. So if you hear me saying random stuff, it's to the dog. It's really important to look inward and to check in on your development and where you are and where you want to be. I mean, last week we had the kind of come in and meet the professor like the parents' night for you, did it with the kids, and I did it with the adults. And some of the guys turned up with notepads and they'd sketched out like where they thought they could do jiu-jitsu and where they had big holes, and that's a phenomenal way to just try and assess where you are. So if you don't do that, I don't think you can monitor your own progress. I think it's too protracted. There's too many variables. You don't really know. You've got to set some specific goals that you'd like to achieve. And then when you've achieved them, you've got to set some more.
I think it's one of the more interesting dynamics in jiu-jitsu where to get better in the short term, you oftentimes have to get worse or lose. You can just keep doing the things you're already good at, and you'll keep winning. But if you want to reach the next level, you have to switch tactics and be like, okay, what are my weaknesses? Okay, maybe I have to sit on the weaknesses and lose a few rounds to then eventually. I think way back when we're doing more podcasts on Zoom, Bradley Hill was saying how at brown belt he still was hopeless at passing close guard, and he had to just sit in people in like white belts close guard trying to figure out like how to get out, and eventually he got to he was working more against blue belts, and then eventually but until he could really get to it. But that takes a lot of humility because he could easily beat everyone if he just decided he wasn't going to let him put him in close guard. So I think progressing in jiu-jitsu is always an interesting journey. I think I like what Tony does as well. It's something I always intend to do and never do it on the day is recording your roles.
Yeah. Tony's a great student, and someone who's really committed to, wants to compete at white belt at the British, and he's really committed to that. You know, he's a natural athlete, is Tony, and he'll progress fast in jiu-jitsu because he's just got the natural ability, and he kind of moves really well, and he's got good instincts. He's boxed a lot, so you know, give that guy a bit of technique, and he's going to be an absolute beast. But I think he's the way that Tony Brown is really committed to his own learning by recording his rolls, reflecting on them, watching them back. Man, he was cutting people's hair in Jack's. If you don't go to Jack's, you should go to Jack's. Great barbers that Tony owns. And he had the bloody Pans or the Worlds on in the background, like on TV. So this is a guy who's now getting obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and it's paying off.
It's quite interesting, Tony's journey. We need to get him on the podcast now, because
yeah, he's got a good story.
And but because he did do jiu-jitsu for like a month or so, and then he was like, not really for me. And then he kind of came back, and now he's like obsessed.
I was going to say about, like, just to give you a bit of an example for me, right? So like I was just chatting off air. I was saying, man, I feel a bit tired today. Like I didn't sleep well, and probably part of that is because I rolled really hard yesterday. So I rolled 6-minute rounds at lunchtime, and 10 5-minute rounds or 9 5-minute rounds on the night. And like I can feel like every roll is more difficult. So what that means is either I'm getting worse or our students are getting better. And it's definitely the latter. So I feel like my jiu-jitsu is improving, but at a slower rate than everybody else's, quite naturally. I'm not on that bell curve anymore. I'm kind of at the top, plateauing off. But the thing I'm working on is, so I could establish a guard on most people at the beginning of a roll, keep them in my guard, and probably sweep or submit most people, right, in our academy, yeah? So what I'm doing is kind of allowing people to get past the few layers of my guard before I get going. So I might completely be supine on my back and let them kind of start to pass. I might let them get past the legs. I might let them wrap the legs. I might let them get like an over-under pass like I've been doing with Frosty, and just sitting in that position between having your guard passed and recovering your guard and trying to recover back to a guard. And that's just something I'm working on. So I have a harder guard to pass. So yeah, you could do that as well. It doesn't need to be. I think sometimes people focus probably too much on submissions because it's the apex of the art. Just like, I've got to submit people. Like, you don't. You could be really good at escapes. You could really work hard on the transitions between positions, which is often a kind of missed part of the jiu-jitsu. Everything happens in transition. So I hear people say, well, I'm working on my escapes. What that means is you've been pinned and you're escaping from a pinned position. What about the gap between them getting past your legs and getting chest to chest? Like, what happens then? Oh dear, Ziggy The Dog. Lay down. What happens then? Let me sit up here. Good boy, sit down. What happens then? You know, because you've got to work on that because it's a skill in itself, isn't it? So that's what I'm working on right now. And then I want to work really hard on improving my collar sleeve guard. I taught that last night in GB2. I'm going to teach it again today in GB3 to give everyone the information that I'm learning about the position. And then I'll pick something else. What are you working on right now?
I've been working on all the different types of triangles, really, which is why I ended up popping my foot on the wrong-sided triangle. But yeah, being able to hit less of the front triangle, more like the wrong-sided, rear triangle less so, more like the side triangle and the reverse triangle. And trying to hit them from positions I usually don't hit them from. So like side triangle, I've been competent at for a while, and I usually set up from the Kimura. But being able to set up more from like turtle or in guard passing, or being able to switch between my triangles. So being able to switch from like the side triangle to the reverse triangle, or like a back triangle into a wrong-sided triangle.
What have you been? What resource have you been using to learn that?
A lot of Gordon's Triangle DVD, Danaher's Enter the System triangles. What else have I been looking at?
It's something I'm not very good at. I don't. That's a big area of my game I could work on and improve. Like I don't do side triangles. Really.
It's just it's too vast to do everything, though, isn't it? It's like.
But that's the kind of point I'm trying to make. Like you've got to think about what do you want to do? What do you want to get better at? Like if you just, I think you're going to turn up and through osmosis and commitment, like you will get better, but it's going to be a very messy journey.
Yeah. I think that's why, you know, people say, oh, you get so much better when you compete. There's nothing special about going out on the competition mats. You know, it's not like you get an extra portion of your brain and now you can learn more. It's just the way you perceive it and the amount of focus you have beforehand. So if you focused on all your training like you have to go and compete, and then if you took every loss, I remember someone talking about Braulio, maybe it was Jacob when he was on the podcast, saying like, you might catch Braulio in something once, but never again, because he'll ask you about it straight away. He'll learn everything up there is to know about it, and then you just never can catch him in it again. Yeah. It's like how many of us do that on the mats? It's usually like, oh, you got me, go again. And you never really think about, oh, it's just the armbar, I won't get caught in again. But you never like then go back and be like, right, I got caught in that armbar. Now I need to know, like, obviously my escapes or my arm positioning isn't right when I'm doing something, and you never really go back and rectify it.
That's a good point, mate. I spoke to someone last week, in fact, a couple of people at that kind of Meet the Professor night, which we will do every quarter. And if you didn't get a chance to see me, if we can make the time, if I can find the time, I'll definitely meet you anytime to talk about your development. And I'm sure Coach T will as well. You know, one measure for some people of their success or development is that they don't get submitted. And you've got to understand that when certainly if you're rolling with me, like when I'm applying a submission on you, it's not 100%. I'm going to give you a little bit of room, and I don't want to break your arm. So I had Tommy Owen in like a Kimura armbar last week, and I was thinking his shoulder is fully in tension here. In any moment, it's going to pop, and I kind of said, dude, like, you're going to tap or not? Because if you don't tap and I break your arm, like, I'm not going to feel good about that. You're not going to feel good about that. And to your point, T, I think it's important that we don't get into a habit of saying, well, I'm so robust that I don't get tapped. It's like, well, how the hell did you get your arm behind your back in the first place? That's the learning. Yeah. Like, just stop that happening.
There's 2 points there that I'm both passionate about. Well, one, I had to speak to one of the students because Gavin had him in a deep omoplata, and Gavin was being super gentle. He was like, it's probably about time to tap, mate. Like, I was sitting on the bench, they were just on the side, so I could hear everything they were saying. And it's like, you all right? You're going to tap? He's going to tap.
Well done, Gav.
And the buzzer goes, and I was like, oh, I kind of like had you in the hole, like you probably would have been best off tapping then. And this is a white belt student, and he goes, I'll tap when I need to tap. And I was like, whoa, like he was trying to give you some advice there, and you completely mugged him off. And to be honest, he was right. Like you were only surviving because he was being nice to you. Like had he then just gone to apply the submission, you don't know if he might apply it too fast and you won't have time to tap, or so.
Don't mistake kindness for weakness.
Yes, there's the same student I actually had to have a word with because they were just tucking their chin to defend the rear naked choke. I'm like, that is a defense against someone that's kind, not a defense against someone that wants to.
He'll mandible strangle you to death, or just cut underneath him.
And the other thing is, I really don't like. There's like a bit of white belt advice that floats around of like, oh, if you don't get tapped in the round, that's progress. And I think it is progress if you are still trying to win the round. A lot of people go like, okay, I just need to not get tapped. And they'll like shell up and do this for an entire 6 minutes. I'm like, you haven't learned or done any jiu-jitsu, and you kind of perverted the nature of what we're trying to do here, which you're trying to submit me and I am trying to submit you. If you were just trying to not get tapped, yes, you showed maybe like a little bit of something, but you're not really doing the sport.
And also, sorry, T, just cutting on that point, it's what Braulio said at the seminar, right? Like, we can't control what our opponent's doing. So you say, well, I didn't get tapped. It's like, maybe I didn't try and tap you. Yeah. Maybe I'm working on my guard passing.
Yeah, there's a lot of times when, if I'm working a rear triangle, I might have to pass up 3 different submission options where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hit that submission because I'm working towards the back, rather than being like, just tap, reset, because you might get really good at guard passing or like your takedowns if you're doing that, but to develop certain skills, you have to forsake other opportunities.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, I don't think not tapping is a mark of improvement, really. If you're still getting caught in the submissions. If you're not getting caught in the submissions, I would say that is progress. If you were getting caught in them and now you're not, so you stay more safe, you're understanding where the dangers are, that is progress. But just being able to withstand someone breaking your arm.
Yeah.
No one's going to want to break your arm.
I try and do most of the time. Sometimes I'll just, especially if it's a very competitive role, like I try and not hit the actual finish of the move. So like, armbar's the easiest example. Kind of like you do with the kids, where like they extend the arm, and I just see if I can control it, and maybe like let them work the escape a little bit to see if I can work the control, or maybe they can do the escape and I'll see what is the next submission. Can I put them in the triangle as they're escaping? Can I put them in the omoplata as they escape? And that is like a nice way to develop your skills. But it's nothing to do around submissions. It's like I've literally passed up the opportunity to submit, so I could then develop a later stage skill.
Yeah, that comes with a certain level of experience on the mat that you do that. Again, it's the transitions, it's the bit in between. It's like, okay, I can get to this position. It's like I use the analogy of like a striker in football getting into the box. So Patrick Bamford hasn't scored for Leeds for God knows how long. Is he getting on the end of the ball in the box? Is he getting into positions? Okay, it's the same in jiu-jitsu. Am I able to get that top triangle, the trap triangle? Am I able to get the arm isolated? That is progress in itself. But then there's the finish, which is a completely different bit. And then there's the bit in between, which you're talking about. It's like, okay, get the position. I probably could finish this. I'm just going to give him a little bit of rope. I mean, I'm doing that constantly, pretty much every single roll.
Yeah.
I'll get to a good position. I'll just stop and give our students time to think and think, okay, well, how can I get out of this? Then they'll move and I'll shut it down. And that's me then learning. Okay, they move this way, I do this. So it's so, to your point, so vast and so complex. I think if we don't have specific goals that we're working towards, that stretches somewhat, I just think the progress becomes, over time, it just diminishes.
Yeah. I think one of the shorts for the Train Safe guide got posted to YouTube the other day. So I just scheduled them all in advance, but it was the emphasis on physical control. And it talks a lot about how that's the best way to keep your training partners safe as well, because if you're having to, jump on submissions or really use a lot of speed and uncontrolled movement to get a technique to work, you can get it to work, and sometimes there is a place for that, but the risk of injuring someone does go up, which a lot of people in the academy are concerned about. So it's not always about just getting that submission and just firing it off. Sometimes it is about how much control can I exert over this person, and that doesn't necessarily have a binary. Yes, I submitted them, or no, I didn't submit them, but you are progressing.
Yeah. I feel it. I mean, I rolled with Katie Lamb the other day, only had a couple of minutes because the timer had already started. And it was a bit of a warm-up round. And so I kind of let Katie pass a little bit, and I kind of turtled up. And then I remember recognising and thinking, wow, she's got really good control of my elbow. Mm-hmm. Like she's really got a perfect grip to stop me rotating to the position that I need to rotate to. And so that for me was I should have probably told her this, but I hope you're listening, Katie. But like, I can feel that you now have the awareness of control. And that is a huge step towards becoming proficient at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just chaotic. And you're hoping to land in the right position, and you're hoping to be faster than your partner, and you're hoping they make a mistake. If you can control someone, you dictate the pace of the round, you dictate where they can move, where they can't move, then it's a completely different fight.
Yeah, Katie's a beast. I had a really fun roll with her the other week, and she Tariqa platted me. I was like, yes, Katie. And then, but then there was a minute left. I was like, all right, I've got to get Tariqa platter back on Katie.
Is it worth talking? I know we've got other topics to talk about, but is it worth talking about kind of male female stuff? It's something we discussed in our team meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
And we haven't kind of prepared this at all, but I'm really keen on us being a really inclusive academy. And it's actually one of our values that we chose as a business, as a team. And there can be a perception sometimes, and I'm not discounting anyone's feelings here, because if you feel a certain way, that is absolutely right, and you should feel that way. But there can be a perception sometimes that guys smash girls. Like, I mean, I just don't see it happening. Unless I'm missing it. If I'm missing it, then you've got to come tell us. Because if someone does hurt you, or a guy is imposing themselves on you, and you are a female or just a weaker guy, then you should come and tell us, because it's not cool. But there are some people out there, like Kate, like Sophie Gill, who will batter most guys. I don't buy this kind of gender thing. I think it's more about size, strength, power. So for instance, if you roll against Johnny Gratian, who's going 100%, he's going to be a hard man to control, right? Like that's the
It's
way
going
it
to
is.
squish me.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, like it's just what it is. So I don't want it to, I've heard a few things recently and I'm a bit concerned that it's starting to feel a little bit divisive. There's a kind of like a female movement somewhere that's talking about their experience training with guys writ large. And unless I'm missing it, I'm not seeing it. So I suppose this is a call out to anybody to say, like, if you do experience that from a man or a woman, if you are a man or a woman, then come and speak to us directly about it. But putting things in groups and talking offline, it kind of creates division and it's against our values. We want everyone to train everywhere. It's why we don't put like female only mats on, because that would divide. Where do you go from there? Okay, we'll have a Muslim only open mat, or we'll have a Jewish only open mat. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, just wanted to just touch on that briefly. It's something that we're aware of in the academy. There's been a few instances recently of people saying stuff like, if you honestly have a genuine concern or experience, please speak to us directly. We will deal with it. We always have, we always will, in a very robust fashion. It can be quite hurtful, divisive, and unfair to post things in groups or speak offline about groups of people.
Yeah, I'd agree. I've got another topic about drilling, or we could talk a bit more about the little meet the professor, meet the coach stuff.
What's the drilling? Let's do the drilling.
Well, something I've been thinking about a lot and talking about in the classes is not every rep that you do when you're drilling jiu-jitsu should be a successful rep. So a lot of time, I think this is most prevalent when you do foot sweeps. So pretty much every time, in reality, every 9 out of 10 foot sweeps you're going to do when you're learning foot sweeps are going to be failures. Yeah. But when we drill them in the academy, a lot of people drill them and the partner will just fall over to be like, oh, it worked. But in reality, they don't really know at that point whether it did or didn't work. However, I think when you're drilling, you'd feel embarrassed if you did it 9 times and it still wasn't working. And therefore, people kind of help each other. But I think it's actually more of a hindrance to them.
100% it is.
But foot sweep's just one example, but I think there's a lot of other ways. And it's a fine balance between giving your partner enough resistance and at the right times. If I have to sum it up quickly, I'd say, your first few reps, and it'll depend on what level of class you're in, but like your first few reps should be pretty much no resistance, like just so they can feel out the different sequence. And then like add 5% resistance. So, okay, your body's just a little bit more rigid. Mm-hmm. And then just keep adding that until you find that sweet spot where like, it's like, I can do it, but it's not easy. And then that's like that growth zone. But I'm not sure if many people try and do that when they're drilling, or have the courage to communicate with their partner that that's what they want when they're drilling. Yeah. Or even have the courage to start to offer that as a partner when they're drilling. Yeah. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think you've got to train for reality. And reality is when you roll with someone, they're not going to fall over. So it's kind of pointless drilling. And if your partner's been too complicit, it is a hindrance. It's tricking you into thinking you're doing the technique. I mean, you're not. There's a great saying that a man's reach should always extend his grasp. Anything we're doing in life should be slightly beyond where we're at. And to your point about the growth zone, that's called the zone of proximal development. So it's just, I can do it, but it's just beyond where I'm at. Like that is where you need to be. If you're in your comfort zone and you're doing your A game every single roll, you're not in the zone of proximal development. You're in kind of a consolidation development piece. So absolutely you should be asking your partner, and I think it is an ask to, okay, could you just resist this a little bit, to your point? Just a little bit more. Okay, just a little bit more. Okay, now it's not working. Why not? Oh, my technique's not great. Let's fix this. What does it feel like now? And have a conversation, particularly when you've been training for a couple of years, and perhaps a blue belt, purple belt, brown, black belt. Like it should be a conversation and an exchange of ideas. It's something I've been doing in GB3 on a Tuesday lunch, and I'll be bringing into Monday night after April the 8th. That, I ask the students to, instead of just coming on the mat and sitting and waiting for me to turn up, that we start to practice and we start to share information. I say, well, what if you did it this way? What if you do it? Oh, I've seen this. What about that? That's where the learning comes.
Yeah.
Not just waiting for us to show you new techniques.
That's funny. I say the same, without us talking about this. I say the same thing to the GB3 students that I teach on the nights. Like, I say to them like this, I see this class as not as GB1, it's a bit of a dictatorship. I'm like telling you, like, here's the moves that we're going to do. GB3, I see it as like a PhD research program where like we're all learning together. Like, I'm teaching on pretty much the edges of my knowledge, and I've had to research a lot just to deliver the class. So if you do something and you're like, oh, this works quite well, coach, like I'm going to take that and we'll feed it back to the class. It's a bit of a cheat code you get when you're teaching, is that when you're drilling with just one person, you learn from yours and that one person's experience. But when you're teaching, you learn from everyone in the room's experience. So you fast track your learning there.
I literally taught GB1 yesterday, and it's a scissor sweep, right? And I was researching, as you do, because I'm teaching at the edge of my knowledge sometimes. And when I'm trying to develop, what I try and do is teach classes that I'm actively trying to pursue learning myself, because I'm interested in it and I'm working on it, and I've found successes and I've found failures. And the scissor sweep, like Paul Schreiner was describing the scissor sweep in a way that I'd not heard been described before, in the way the mechanics work. And it unlocked a different view that I had of this technique. Everyone tries to use the legs as a scissor motion, but you're using your adductors and stuff as small muscle groups. He talks about extending his back, which Brello teaches, but also pushing the hips forward. And the act of pushing the hips forward naturally scissors the legs. And that is the power. It comes from the hips. So even yesterday, GB1 technique, black belt of 6-7 years, I learned something about a scissor sweep, which I'd never learned before. I
say that to people all the time when they never seem to believe you. Like, especially if, I think there's like a certain, I don't know why it is, but in this academy, some people reach a certain level and they think, oh, I can't really learn much more in GB1. I've done it a few times. Yeah. And then they'll come to a GB1 class every now and again. I've had this a few times now where they're like, I don't remember this being in the curriculum. Like, have we done this before? Like, I can't. I'm like, yeah, we've done this a lot of times, but my knowledge of the curriculum gets better, and those moves get better, and I can teach it to a better level, and you're gonna learn some different details over time. Because I'm learning different details every time. You don't just master a technique is never really mastered. It's like it's always on a spectrum of growth and changing. So
the fundamentals are never going away, guys. You will see trends and fads in jiu-jitsu come and go. I've seen it millions of times. 50-50 was the thing, and then everyone figured it out. Heel hooks was the thing, and everyone wanted them. Now they figured it out. Like, the fundamentals of guard and guard passing and submission. If you only learnt the GB1 curriculum, but you just polished and refined it, Roger Gracie won 10 world titles doing the GB1 curriculum, pretty much, right? Close guard, sweep to mount, cross collar chop from mount. It's like, that's it. Bit of side mount. So you can absolutely do that. And look, one of the things Braulio and Victor said the other day, which meant so much to me, and I'm sure it probably hit you as well, is how impressed they were with everybody's level of basic fundamental technique. It is something that we take for granted in this academy, but I'm telling you now, we see it all the competition trophies round, and there's more to come. How all of our competitors compete well. They compete well because they've got a solid grasp of the fundamentals, not because they know a special move, where other students from other academies perhaps don't, because they focus on the fads and the cool stuff that we see online and not on the basics. The classic one, really, and I was chatting to Chris Williams about this probably about a year ago. I don't see many blue belts, certainly not white belts, who can, to Bradley Hill's point, can do well inside someone's closed guard. That is a fundamental part of jiu-jitsu, one of the most important. If you're inside someone's closed guard, you've got to get out. Otherwise, you're going to get submitted or swept. People can't do it. They can't stand up. They don't understand posture. They don't understand base. They don't understand what grips they need. It's a huge hole in many people's games. So I think, I've said this before, but I taught and participated in the fundamentals program, the GB1 program, up until brown belt. So I would go every week to a fundamentals class and just get better at my hip escapes and my basic techniques. And it's paid off.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not the class you're in or or who's even teaching it. It's like how you approach that class again, isn't it? It's like how you're going to drill those moves and how you approach learning those techniques. Just like with the progress thing, if you approach everything and give it like a half-hearted effort and you just go in just to get your dot on your card and just to show your face, then you're not going to be getting much better in that class. But the person who's there and they're focused and they're really trying to test out those techniques and learn about the movement and the position and feel a bit of resistance, like that person's getting so much more out of that class than the person who's just showing up at me.
Yeah, I said on the seminar, didn't I? Don't leave tonight with any questions. Don't leave any class with any questions. Like, that's what we're here for. It shows me that you're really interested and you want to learn. And if you don't ask that question, you're not going to know. And if we can't answer it, we'll find someone who can.
Yeah.
So yeah, be engaged in the process of learning. Don't just come to class and be passive and expect to be shown something that you're just going to pick up. It's not going to happen. You've got to engage. We've got to meet each other in the middle, haven't we? As coaches, we prepare well. We think about our classes. We study. We come and we try and offer you something. You've got to meet us halfway with your engagement, your energy, and your willingness to try and develop. And when we have the mix of those two things, we have, like we had last night, a wonderful, energetic, fun, high learning class that everyone took something from.
Yeah, and there's Victor gave a really great end of class little speech, and I got that recorded and sent it to him, and I'll post it out. But about kind of your responsibility to help share and grow jiu-jitsu, and your responsibility to your teammates and the community. If you're taking away, if you get value from the team, or if you've been picked up when you're not feeling great, then you kind of have a bit of responsibility to do that for someone else, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's a selfish thing, isn't it? And jiu-jitsu is not selfish. It takes two. I think we're trying to work really hard to grow out our kids program. To make it like the best in class, world class, and it will be. We're going to communicate that out soon. We're looking at redevelopment to this place, potentially the men's change rooms, maybe extending upstairs, whatever. We can only do that if we continue to grow. And we advertise, but by far the best conversions we get are referrals. And there'll be people in your life, if you're listening to this, who could do with jiu-jitsu. Who could do with it? Drag them in here for a trial class. Make it happen for them. Because in a year's time, they're going to be like, man, I wish if there's one thing I hear more than anything else, it's like, I wish I'd found this earlier. No one ever regrets starting jiu-jitsu when they started. They always wish they started 10, 20 years earlier. So, be that person who really says to someone, come on, let's do it and make it happen.
Awesome. Well, let's call it time there, and I've already got quite more questions and topics that I can think about for another podcast. So hopefully you'll be back next week, but if not, we'll have someone else, and we'll get to it. All right. Any closing thoughts?
No, I will be back next week. I thought Ziggy's done well. He's been restless. He wants to go for a walk.
Yeah, thank you, Ziggy.
But you've been a good boy. All right. Good. All right. Speak to him all.